Now, Serenity Dreamer has very kindly said she's obsessed with Katie's glowing skin. Can she share her skincare secrets on the podcast? She's in awe. There is a new beauty technique which is going on at the moment, which is not suitable for vegans, but if you're okay with it, a lot of the Hollywood A-listers are doing it, and I've just tried it, and it's basically salmon sperm. Hello, welcome back to Own Your Health with me, Katie Brindle. And today it's all about the Coffee Break Clinic. I indeed have my coffee. We've been filming all afternoon and it's Coffee Break Clinic time where I get to have a rest and answer all of the lovely questions which you leave us in your comments on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. So please do leave us your comments and questions because they come up and they get answered in the Coffee Break Clinic. And do obviously please follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and tell your friends so that they too can join in the Coffee Break Clinic. So what are we talking about today? Well, a whole load of questions have come in and this is going to be very much an unfiltered Coffee Break Clinic because I'm going to go with the first question, which comes from Serenity Dreamer. Now, Serenity Dreamer has very kindly said she's obsessed with Katie's glowing skin. Can she share her skincare secrets on the podcast? She's in awe and she's dying to know how she achieves such clarity. Right, so what I could say was it's Gua Sha and face tapping and face brushing, which it is because I do that myself as well. But there is a little bit more to it. And I'm not going to fob off anybody in my social media channels with anything other than the truth about what I do. Because why not? As long as it's natural, as far as I'm concerned, I'm okay with it. So there is a new beauty technique which is going on at the moment, which is not suitable for vegans. But if you're okay with it, a lot of the Hollywood A-listers are doing it. And I've just tried it. And it's basically salmon sperm. Dung, 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 dung. Google it, knock yourselves out looking at it. I've only just tried it once, but I have to say it has absolutely transformed my skin. You do a series of 4 injections over a series of 4 months, and it really creates huge, great skin elasticity because what are you doing? Well, you're basically putting essence into the skin and you're nourishing it very, very profoundly from the inside out. So it's a really interesting thing. Now, I was telling the team that before we started and then I turned into one of Katie's stories and we've decided I'm going to share it with you anyway. If you have any children listening to this podcast, I suggest that if they are under the age of 12, they shouldn't be listening because I'm going to talk about the sperm word because there was this ancient sect in ancient China. This was before the Cultural Revolution. And the way kind of ancient China would organise itself was it was very hierarchical and very structured, and there was kind of everything was done to the nth degree. So if ever there was anything to be done in life, it was done to perfection. For the aristocracy and the people of seniority, you could have access to the best of the best of the best of the best. Now that in turn created a huge amount of social unrest and a huge division in social classes and ultimately led to the Cultural Revolution. So this sect was no different from that. So what it was called the White Tigress. And it was banned by Chairman Mao, who, according to this book, kept 5 of them for himself and then banned the rest. And what happened was they all went off to Taiwan. Well, the ones that managed to anyway. These women were astonishingly beautiful for their whole life. It was just incredible. Their hair was thick and lustrous and it hadn't fallen out, it hadn't gone grey. Their skin was incredible. They looked youthful and young. And it was kind of like, what on earth is going on? Well, the reason what was happening was, remember, this stuff wasn't sullified in East. It wasn't like a kind of brothel in East London in the Victorian ages, which was kind of lift up your skirts and get on with it. This stuff was stylised and it was energised and there was a culture that went with it. I'm not passing judgment as to whether this stuff was right or wrong or the debasement of the female. I'm not going there. I'm talking about what they were doing. Now, what would happen was that there would be certain women that were involved in this and they would be selected for their natural beauty in the first place and probably social inequality and one thing and another. But what would happen is the older gentleman, it was basically voyeurism. Now, he would be called the Jade Dragon, and he would be behind the curtain watching what was going on, but he wasn't allowed to get involved. The idea was that when you're doing Taoist sexual practice, it is not a good idea for the man to ejaculate, because essence is very important to conserve longevity in life. So this is where Taoist sexual practices come in, and that they understood to split the male orgasm between orgasm and ejaculation, which is something that the modern day man doesn't necessarily appreciate, that you can actually divide the two. It takes a little bit of practice, but you can indeed do it. And there are massive books about this. I will do a whole podcast about this if anyone's interested. It's super interesting and it can indeed be done. It's also very, very useful for them if they have partners, because often you will find that sometimes that kind of management is something which is important in a marriage, because often women take a little bit longer to get to the end result than their male counterparts. And this separation of the two is a very important practice. But anyway, it's aside from that, from a health perspective, they understood that the stirring of the low energy frequency down in the lower belly of the body is extremely good for the gentleman, because what it would do is it would create an energy stirring, which if they cultivated it correctly, they would learn how to move it around their body to invigorate their body in terms of the spine, the spinal fluids, the nervous system, and they could start to kind of feed that energy into their vital organs, which were really important for conserving their own life in a very pleasurable way. So what they were doing was observing to create a reaction, and then that reaction was then consciously moved around their body. So that was the jade dragon. And they would have contracts with these ladies. So the lady would be attached to her jade dragon for a 3-year contract, because they understood also that sexual energy has a shelf life. I'm really sorry to break that news to everyone, but it does. Okay, so if you've ever been in a relationship where at the beginning you can't take your hands off each other and then you wonder what happened, it's because there is an energy lifespan to sexual energy. And there are ways that that gets cultivated and elongated, but if you use it all up too much too soon, then often that can kind of cause problems later down the line. So this contract would be 3 years, okay, where he would observe her and he would patron her. She in turn would be attached to him for 3 years. They could renew the contract after 3 years. Okay. And then often what would happen was then you would move on to a different person. But remember that the jade dragon was at this stage only observing. But the other interesting thing was, as part of this contract, younger men would be allowed within a certain time frame, because in Taoist sexual practices, younger men are advised to release essence a certain number of times per month. And that slows down as one gets older. There's an optimum amount of times that one should be having sex during the course of your lifetime. Again, we can talk about that in detail if anyone's interested, which I bet they are. So it's super interesting. But at a young age, it's relatively frequently, okay? And they would be allowed to basically experience fellatio with these ladies. And it was done in a particular way because it's a very advanced technique if done correctly. And these women would be expert in it in order to allow them to release in a positive way. It wasn't considered dirty, okay? I know it might sound like it, but it wasn't, okay? And in return for all of this, what happened to the women was that basically they got a living face mask. I don't really know how else to put it in a delicate way, but they would get a living face mask at the end of their troubles. And the experience of the way that they were performing fellatio on the gentleman in the first place would develop the muscles of the face in a really brilliant way for their beauty. And they would also get this living face mask at the end of it, and they would have to lie there for 20 minutes. He would exit the room and she would literally lie back down on the couch and just allow it to take effect. And then her maids in turn would remove her from the room, and that would be considered to be a beauty technique for her. Now, I'm probably aware that this is a coffee break clinic and everyone is absolutely stunned silence about the white tigress sect. And this indeed went on. And these women were considered to be really beautiful. So I'm not advocating that, okay? And if any lady is considering that she might actually wish to experience a living face mask with her husband, all I can say is do please watch out for your eyes. Because it's full of phosphorus. Anyway, you can indeed get it injected into your skin in a perfectly sensible way on Harley Street, and it doesn't involve any of the above, but it's a super, super interesting cultural story, and I do like these stories, and everyone in the room just doesn't know what to do. So I'm going to leave it there and say that there you go. There's never such a thing as a simple answer, is there? So shall we move on to itchy ears? Because Luna Stardust 89 says that she says, your podcast is a gold mine of information. Well, that's sure. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, I've been struggling with itchy ears for weeks now. Any tips from Chinese medicine to soothe this discomfort? And you can't wait for my thoughts. Well, everyone is going to be delighted to know that there wasn't an ancient Chinese sect that was dealing with itchy ears. So that's the good news. So what do we do? Now, itchy ears in Chinese medicine is related to two things. One, I'm going to say wind, and everyone's going to think, oh my God, now what? No, just outside external wind, as in weather wind. Okay, wind. Wind in Chinese medicine is the spearhead of disease. And if wind whips up and gets into the ears, it can often create itching. So in cold weather, it's really important to wear earmuffs or hats. And in warmer weather, because especially, I mean, if you're living in the UK, which I am, you've got to so watch this weather. So I am very fragile, and Mr. Brindle always laughs at me about this. And so even in the summer, I will have a little silk scarf in my bag, just in case. And then I put it on over my head, just in case, because the wind can whip up and it can make your ears itchy. And I indeed get itchy ears myself, so I have to be careful about that. So cover your ears is the first thing. The second thing is there's a really brilliant product called Active Silver, and they do these really good eardrops, and they're fantastic for itchy ears. So I highly, highly, highly recommend. If you don't want to buy anything, most people have olive oil kicking around their house, okay? So a good quality olive oil in a little kind of dropper bottle, just warm it slowly. So to warm olive oil in a dropper bottle, you just get a little like cup in your bathroom, just put some warm water from the tap into the cup, put the olive oil in, drop a bottle into the cup, give it a minute or two, just test the oil on the back of your hand to make sure it's the right temperature, and just put it into the ear and then massage all around the ear like this, either with your fingers or with a Gua Sha crystal. Okay, you could use the Gua Sha compress as well. Any of those products will work, but your fingers will do. And if you don't have a Gua Sha, you don't want one, just use a Chinese soup spoon, which is the kind of, this is the really cheap household version, okay? And you just like press stroke around the area, making sure that you're really working down from the back of the earlobe down the throat, slowly, 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 slowly. That should do the trick. If it doesn't, then it goes into a deeper condition, which is basically where the kidney energy is starting to weaken, which it does because the kidneys are responsible for the batteries of life and we work too hard and we don't get enough sleep, blah, blah, blah. Have a look at the kidney fact sheet for that. But what happens is it draws the energy down and then you start to get itching. And normally, if you get itching, it's likely to lead to tinnitus later down the line. Or you tend to get you tend to get itchy ears followed by tinnitus. So you want to get those itchy ears as soon as you possibly can, okay? We are here with Dr. Vegan again, this time with their brilliant Hair Saviour product. If you're looking to revive your hair's health and luster, then look no further than this Dr. Vegan supplement. It's an award-winning formula containing 14 hair-loving ingredients like AnaGain, MSM, and Biotin. Users have reported visible results in only just 6 to 8 weeks, results including hair growth, shine, and strength. Now, not only is this product really good for your hair, but it's also lovely for the planet as well, because it all comes in biodegradable packaging. And last but by no means least, if you use the code BRINDLE25, you will receive 25% off this fabulous product at till point. So there we go. Good for the planet, good for your pocket, and good for your hair. Max Velocity X just discovered your podcast and I'm hooked. Hey, thank you. Dealing with eczema flare-ups lately. I'm wondering if I have any insights into managing the condition. You can't wait to learn more. Well, the first thing about eczema, hang on, is eczema has a fact sheet. Okay, and there is also a masterclass all about skin conditions, which goes into literally chapter and verse about the whole thing. Okay, so there's a huge amount of information there. But basically, eczema connects to the liver and the lungs in Chinese medicine. And basically, there's too much heat and toxicity in the body. And what the body does is, there's two things. First of all, because we're stressed and, the stuff, all the stuff that we are all the time, is what happens is it impacts the things that I say every time to create your healthy body. Free flow of qi and blood, purge and nourish, strengthen the 5 key organs. If this is new to you, go back to the early episodes. We'll put in the one below where that comes from and go back and listen to that whole episode about that. But eczema is very common because when the body does not flow smoothly and is not purging and nourishing, and we are not strengthening our organs correctly, skin conditions are very normal because the skin is the largest excretory organ in the body. So the body uses it to get rid because it doesn't want things on its inside. It's like a garden. If you've got all that toxic energy inside, that's going to damage your organs. And the body is going, we don't want that, so push it out. Now, what happens to skin is when we get stressed, which is most of the time, the skin is deemed to be a peripheral organ as far as the body is concerned. So what the body does is when you're stressed, it takes blood circulation away from the peripheral organs for fight or flight. So it comes away from the skin, it comes out of the digestive system, and it goes everywhere else, into the muscles. And what then happens is your skin gets starved of its nourishment from the inside. And then in turn, your liver and your lungs, which are suffering and imbalanced from this very stress response, are going, oh my God, I know, I'll just whack it out through the skin. So what's happening is your poor body, your skin is being asked to do twice the amount of work with no food. So it's like a slave. And what happens is your body will just go into overdrive and go, I have to get rid of this toxic waste, no matter what. If I don't, it's going to start sloshing around the blood supply. It's going to get stuck in the organs. It's going to get stuck in my body. It's going to get compromised in my health. So I've got to get rid of it. It's hot in nature. So normally with eczema, what happens is eczema tends to produce itself normally at the beginning in the creases of the elbow and behind the knees. Now, interestingly, they are the water points and the heat points of the body. That's your body going, it's like a kettle, okay? And you've blocked off the exit and the body's going like this. And it's just forcing it out like this, like a steam kettle, just like trying to get rid of it. So it produces itself here. So what do we need to do? It's really simple. You just have to go back to the basic 3 principles of self-care, which is what I talk about all the time. Free flow of qi and blood, purge and nourish, strengthen the 5 key organs. Now, how? Okay, well, the easiest way to do that is the tapper. Because what the tap... Now, don't tap the eczema affected area, but you need to tap everywhere else. Why? Because this is drawing the circulation out of the muscles, which is where it was put for your stress response, which you are likely to have gone through multiple times a day, and draw it back into its normalised flow. That's what the tapper does. This is the absolute basic tool that you need for your body. If you tap your body all over, you are rectifying qi and blood flow. Straight away, done. Okay, so that's the first thing to do. It's really, really important. Don't tap the affected area. Tap everywhere else. Okay, then it also strengthens the organs and it allows the body to purge and nourish. Because what's happening is rather than the body being forced to shove all the eczema into these kind of creases and where the body's desperately trying to get rid of it, you're allowing it to regulate smooth all over this large excretory organ. You're allowing it to just regulate it in a normal way through sweat, through lymph, through heat, okay, through the heat transference, through your skin. It's really simply done because you're basically allowing the skin pores to open, the circulation to move, you're allowing the toxicity to dissolve and to disseminate, and that the body can then do this really cool thing, which is called sublimation. Sublimation is a really cool word that you will learn in physics and chemistry, which means when one substance changes form into something else, which is what happens in nature, and it happens in your body, okay? And it can go into the body as energy, okay, and stress, and then it can get stuck as actual physical manifested symptoms, and you can reverse that back out and excrete it back out through the skin, because that's what sublimation is. It's really useful. Now, there's loads more information about eczema on the fact sheet. It's a free fact sheet. I've spent hours and hours, and I've shed tears over those fact sheets, many tears, not just once, just for dramatic effect. Like, literally, I've had multiple meltdowns over them over many times, and I've sworn over them as well. I've said, when are those effing fact sheets ever going to go live on my website? And I've said that for the last 2 years because basically they're an absolute nightmare to get right. And I keep changing them like a master chef, going, oh, they're still not right. But they're free. They're free because I want you to understand how to own your health. So they are a gift. And they're a gift I've suffered for. So please look at them. Because it will make me so happy. And then please comment in the comments below to say, right, you are dealing with adrenal fatigue. And it's been draining. This is Nova Eclipse 24. Could you explore Chinese medicine's perspective on this and any tips for recovery? So adrenal fatigue. So in Chinese medicine, the adrenals are connected to the kidneys. So when we say kidneys, we mean kidneys and adrenals, okay? The kidneys in Chinese medicine are the batteries of the body. So the way that I like to describe this is like a mobile phone. So if you've got adrenal slash you've got this fatigue going on, it's kidney fatigue. And the kidneys, as the batteries, need to be charged. Okay, now what happens when I say this to people in clinic? They immediately go, oh, I need to drink more water. Because they kind of know the kidneys are to do with water and urine. And kidneys do need water, and they are indeed the water element of the body. But before you start glugging gallons of water, which is what I see people do all the time, which actually you don't need to do as much as people think, okay? You do need to drink water, but possibly not quite as much as people endlessly glugging, because it means that the kidneys have got even more work to do. Yes, you need to keep the body fluids at the correct amount, but actually there's a limit to the amount of body fluids the body should be holding at any one moment in time, and we need to be careful about that. But never mind the whole water debate, which we can save for another time, is kidneys need rest. And that's what they don't get. And if you get that mid-afternoon slump and you're getting that adrenal fatigue where you are just so exhausted you can't drag yourself around, it's because your kidneys are literally on low power mode, like your phone. But unlike your phone, you're not charging up your body. You charge up your phone. And if you have a busy day with your phone, like today, I've got a busy day, I brought a charger pack for my phone. I have not brought a charger pack for my body. My body's expected to just get on with it because this is the day I've got to do and I've just got to do it. So we get through it with sugar, with caffeine, with all the things. In fact, this is indeed the coffee break clinic because I'm like, oh, I need a coffee because guess what? I'm flagging a bit. What I actually should be doing is 15 minutes of meditation. But we're on the clock here, so I'll do that afterwards. So in the meantime, I'm getting on with it. But it's very, very important to understand the importance of rest for your kidneys. So if you have adrenal fatigue, the most important thing that I can advise you to do is to ensure that you have an afternoon nap for the rest of your life. It is the best health advice I can give anyone. If that sounds impossible, you'd be amazed how possible it becomes if you're working from home, if you're in an office which is an enlightened office where you can have rest pods. They exist now. They're little pods that you can buy, which basically give permission for people to go and have a quiet, unstimulated space. We have coffee spaces, we have meeting rooms, we have all sorts of spaces in the office, and it's about time that everyone is allowed a quiet space. because that's what our kidneys need. And if we don't get it, we get so exhausted, we cease working altogether and ultimately get sick. There is a whole kidney fact sheet which will help you on this as well. It is very important to keep the kidneys warm, which means you should be covering them up at all times. Don't expose your lower back. Please wear slippers on your feet. Please make sure in the wintertime you're wearing furry boots and scarves and hats and earmuffs so that you're keeping the kidneys warm. But above all, once you've got the hang of resting, then you need to take it into deeper kidney practices such as meditation and Qigong, and then into your advanced health practices you go. So that is the way to restore the kidneys. There's also a plethora of really useful advice and exercises which I've broken down, which is on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So if anyone's interested, do please comment your questions on those platforms and on YouTube. Do please rate and review this coffee break clinic, especially the first one, which I think has left everyone speechless, apart from me. So so do please review on Apple and Spotify, and do please leave your questions. We will answer them. If I haven't answered them all here today, I will make sure that I will answer them in line or on the stories, and I'll make sure that I give you the questions and answers as best I can. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I look forward to seeing you next time.